is Monday, September 19th, 2011. My name is Juliana Nykolaiszyn. Also with me is Tanya Finchum. We're with the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at the OSU Library, and we are continuing our interview with Lucy Loyal. Thank you for joining us one more time.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Lucy, we learned a lot about your family history in our last interview, and now we want to get into your working history.
My working history. Okay.
We know you started as a young child learning, but when can you remember the first time being in the ring, on your own, doing your thing?
Oh, gosh. Woo. Okay. I had practiced quite a bit, and I only did simple things in the show, like swinging ladder, which is very simple. Anybody could do that. I could go through it one time and take you out there, and you could do it. And I think basically all circus children start with, like if they're going to do aerial work, is like swinging ladder and web, and because that's just the basics. And I had kind of done that off and on. And I'm going to say I was probably about 6. And then I remember practicing the riding act. The horses, always practicing, but never actually getting to stand up by myself or anything like that. And I always did the pyramid with my dad. I remember doing pyramid and stuff. And we had a horse named Ginger. And Ginger decided, I guess he didn't want to work that day. They had put him in the ring, and my dad started doing what we call the tails. They grab their tail and turn flips. And at one point you let go and then you grab again. Well, my dad let go and the horse decided that's it. So he jumped the ring and he ran out the back door and was out in the field, and everybody went chasing him. So we're just standing there, and I holler at my mom, "Put Dolly in." I had a horse named Dolly, by the way. So I said, "Put Dolly in, put Dolly in." And Mom's going, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Just put Dolly in." And she put Dolly in, and they helped me up. And that's the first time I ever stood up and did knees and get back up and do another knees until they got, I guess they got tired of watching me do knees up and down until my dad got back in. And I had to have been maybe about 10 years old, 11 years old when I did that. And then big mistake, because from then on I had to do it in the show.
And at 10, what show were you with?
I was with the Algie Kelly Miller Brothers Circus, which D.R. Miller owned, along with his father and his brothers, one brother, Kelly. And then in later years, Karsten Barnes, the owner, was a man by the name of Jack Moore. And we went on Karsten Barnes in 1963. And, of course, I performed the riding act and worked elephants. I rode them. I didn't actually work them. I rode elephants and did mounts and tricks and things on the elephants. And I did web. And I did a single trapeze act. And then in 64, we went back to Algie Kelly Miller and did the whole year of 64 with Algie Kelly Miller. Then 65, we went back to Karsten Barnes, and eventually Mr. Miller bought Karsten Barnes. And so we've been with Mr. Miller pretty much all of our life, my life, I should say, since 1956. I was always in combination, would you say, with D.R. Miller and his family in circus. But like in my one interview with you, we were talking about the monkey. Debbie, of course, this happened on Algie Kelly Miller, where the chimp and I wore her costumes and stuff. I got her hand-me-downs. And, but no, at a young age, I began performing. I remember, I'm going to have to say, back in 54, we were with a circus called Tom Pax for a while, and it was in a indoor show, and all I did was what we call a spec, where you put on a costume and you parade and stuff like that. And I'd go stand in the act with my dad while he juggled, but as far as performing, I didn't then. But I would have to say 56 is when I actually started performing in the show.
And you gravitated towards the horses?
I would be considered a bareback rider. That was what I was. I loved horses, and then from bareback riding, well, basically when you're in the circus, you learn to do a little, to me, it came very natural. And I'm sure to a lot of people it does, and to a lot of people it doesn't. It's like somebody wakes up and they can sing. Well, I can't carry a tune, believe me. But I was very natural, but the horses were my base, I would say, what I did the best. And then I learned to ride elephants. And I could ride the elephants as well as I did the horses, because the horses were running, the elephants weren't running, so it was pretty easy. And I did single traps, and I did a fair single traps. I wasn't the greatest trapeze artist that ever. I was nothing compared to my cousin Dolly. Let me tell you, I wouldn't make a good pimple. And but I did single traps, and I did cradle, where I held my niece while she did tricks. And the only thing I didn't do was juggle, play in the band, or do a flying act. So.
Did your father ever try to teach you how to juggle? Or?
Yes, I just didn't like it. Still don't like it. I know it's takes a lot of practice to be a juggler. You have to practice pretty much 24/7 to be a good juggler. And you have to like it. And I didn't want to stand there all day juggling balls or hoops or whatever. I just didn't like them.
Going back to bareback riding,
Mm-hmm.
what were some of your signature tricks?
I just did a principal act. I didn't. I wasn't ever as good as my aunts or my uncles. I wished I could have been, and probably would have been, had my grandfather lived a lot longer, and had I stayed in Florida rather than moving to Oklahoma where my aunts were. But my father was limited in teaching me. My father was a fair rider. He was a good little rider. But he wasn't anything like my uncles or my aunt. Now, what my dad did have over my aunts and my uncle was he could break the horses, and which they could never do. And that's why they always had good horses, was because of my grandfather and my father. And they always used to tease him and call him the guinea pig, because he would always go with my grandfather. But then in later, when my grandfather got to where he couldn't function as well and stuff, my dad was the one that broke the horses. And that's why they had good horses. And up to the day, well, not now, but to the day he was here, we always had good horses. We don't have good horses anymore. I'm not as good as my father. But he was known for his breaking the horses, and he was a fantastic juggler. But like I said, I didn't like the juggling. And he did head balancing trapeze. And my father, he, I don't know how to explain my father. He was a very smart man. He didn't go to school. He was, I think, maybe third grade, if he got to the third grade. But he taught himself. He could read English. He could write in English. He was smart at math. And he could tell you anything about history you want to know. And how he knew it, I have no clue. But you could ask him dates, even about American history. You could ask him about dates, and like the Louisiana Purchase, for example. He could tell you that. I have no clue, you know. And
were there some important lessons that he passed on to you that just stick out in your mind?
That stick out in my mind. This is one of his lessons. Don't snob your friends on your way up, because you're going to meet those same friends on your way down. So, and he always, I don't know how he taught me to be very conscious worthy of things. Use them till you can't use them anymore, and then try to use them somewhere else. Like, you have, say, an old washing machine, and it breaks down and it's no good, and we'll find the parts out of that old washing machine and things and use it somewhere else so it doesn't go to waste. So, and my father, this is the truth. We were in Canada, 1966. I'll take it back, 68. We had an old green 57 Chevrolet truck that he put this box on, and we carried our horses in it. And my mother and I and my brother were behind him, and he's driving this truck, pulling this trailer, and the axle breaks in this truck. And we were in British Columbia, and back then there weren't any highways. It was just all like dirt country roads. It was horrible. And we were like on the side of a mountain. And you could look over and see the river. And we didn't have an axle to put on this truck. So Papa got out one of his iron stakes that he uses for the trapeze, to put in the ground to guide the trapeze to. And how he rigged that sucker to go into, because I remember him pulling off these tires, these wheels, and he pulled out this thing, this like a big long thing, and it had like, I don't know, like spindle or something on the end of it, and it had little ridges around it and stuff. Well, anyway, I remember him pulling all of that out. And I remember him getting one of our iron stakes that we use for the trapeze. And he fixed it somehow and put it in there, and we kind of just moped into wherever we were going. But we were on the side of the road for like 6 hours or so. We were there a long time. But I wouldn't trade none of it for anything. They give me $1 million, I wouldn't trade it. So,
well, going back to writing.
Okay.
Take me through like an ideal performance.
An ideal performance.
What would you do?
The tent would be packed.
Definitely ideal.
I don't know. It just kind of depends on what kind of a mood I was in, because I never did anything the same way. To me, it was boring. Like everybody has a routine that they keep, and they go in. We'll just use, for example, the trapeze act. They'll go in, they'll climb up on their bar, and they'll sit on their bar, and then maybe they'll do a half angel, and then they'll come back around, and they'll go to their knees and take one leg off and touch their forehead with it and come back around. And it would be consistent every day, the same routine, twice a day. Well, that's too boring for me. So just depended on how I felt that day. I might ride in, I might walk in, I might run in. I might run in and do somersaults or flip-flops or something. And sometimes they would be expecting me to come in my costume and stuff, and I would come in dressed like some bag lady with no teeth and black out my teeth. But I would get with the band, and have the band play St. Louis Blues or something, and I'd come in doing like, but I'd do something different most of the time just to blow their minds. But a normal routine would be I'd come in on the back of the horse. I would go around the ring several times, then I would get up on the side, and then turn and look at the audience as I was going around. And then I would swing back around, and I would take my head and try to touch my toes hanging off the side of the horse. Then I would stand up, and then my dad would throw me my hoop, and I would do my hoop routine. I threw the hoop back, and I would sit down and style. And then I would get back up, and I would stand sideways on the horse as he ran and do turns. And then I would, my dad would throw me my jump rope, and I jumped normal rope, and then I tried to do like the boxers where they intercross them, and I'd do that. And then I would give the rope back, and I would turn, and I would stand up backwards, and that's hard, and I could hardly ever do it because I would fall off. And then I would dance on the back of the horse. I would, then we have a thing what we call banners, where I would jump the banners. It was a big pole, and there would be, you know, like the maypoles, is that what they call them? Where they have those streamers out like that? Well, they would be around the ring, anywhere from 2 to 4. It just depended how I felt that day. And it's terrible, isn't it, for me to sit here and say, take advantage of them. And I would jump the banners. Sometimes I would take the horse and strip him nude, is what I would call him. And that would be take his bridle off, take the harness off, and let him just run nude. And I would vault back on him, grab his mane, and vault back on and ride him nude and jump the banners. And then I would grab his mane, go to my knees, grab his mane, and do a rollover where I'd roll off. And then I would style and I would leave. And then in later years, I got a bug. Because I was always messing around during the show, during the ride, you know, my principal act and stuff. Like I was telling you, where I'd come in and I'd have them play St. Louis Blues, and I'd dress like a bag lady or something, you know. I always wanted to do comedy because I love to make people laugh. And so I got a wild hair up in my behind one day. And I went to Mr. Miller and his daughter Barbara, and I said, I have an idea. I said, I want to try it, and you tell me what you think. And I'm going to tell you it was 1985. It was in 85. And it's like when you try something and eventually you get it perfect, you work out all the little glitches with time. Well, the first time it wasn't it went over tremendous. It went over tremendous. I pretended, they came in, they brought the horses in, and then they would get up and do the pyramid. And at that time I had 3 horses, and Alfredo and Mora were on the pyramid, and then there was you were little then, but you were little, weren't you, Mom? And you did it too. That was later, when you held. Oh, that's right. Her and her brother. It was Alfredo and Mora, Armando and Mona, and they did the pyramid. And then they would make an announcement that they were looking for a young lady, 21 years of age or older, who was wanting to run away and join the circus. And if they were interested, to please come and see the ringmaster, and they might get a chance to audition right now. But she has to like horses. Well, we had this announcer who is Latin. So he's making the spiel, right? We're looking for a young lady, 21 years of age or older, who wants to be a bareback rider. Couldn't say horse. So we got to where we said, don't even say that, a bareback rider. Just say who wants to learn to run away with the circus. So anyway, and we did that, and then of course I would come out and I would go to the back and we would ad lib like I was from. But I wore a skirt and a sweater, and I had a slip. And that skirt, trying to keep that skirt and stuff. So then eventually with time, like I said, after a while you work out the glitches, and I started wearing pants. And I would buy those pantsuits. I don't know if you remember, they're hard to find anymore. They were pretty much out of cotton, and the top matched the pants, and they were kind of loose. So I bought a bunch of those, and they worked out perfect, because when they pulled my skirt off, of course I still had the slip, but still it. So then when they pull the pants off, I would have bloomers on, and then that gave away I was with the circus, because who wears bloomers down here? Nobody. So then I eventually just bought underwear, old ladies, cotton thick underwear. And then when they did pull them off, it looked like you were really from the audience, and I would run out. And then eventually, I wouldn't run out. I would stay on the ring. And I think the kids Christian was supposed to get that ready so you could see the riding act and how it was when I did the comedy. And I would, at the end, ask the audience, or the announcer would ask the audience if they want to really see me ride, and they would say, yeah, whatever. And then I would undress the horse. I'd make him nude with nothing, and I would vault up and sit, and then I would eventually stand up, roll over and get off and style, and we'd all style. But that was my favorite, was the comedy. I love the comedy act. And I'm going to tell you a story about the comedy act. There was a man by the name of Frank Curry, and he was a big circus promoter in Nashville, Tennessee, for Ronald McDonald's. And every year they put on, like the Shriners do, but it was the Ronald McDonald Circus is what it was in Nashville. And I went to work Nashville, that big date, and did my routine, and where they pulled my pants off. And well, a lady and her daughter got really upset, and they went to the main office to complain that how could they embarrass me that way, and this. They had to come and get me, and I had to go up there and explain to them it was part of the act, that it wasn't, just some random person that they pulled out of the audience. And that happened like a couple of times. And then another time in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, the Shriner, his wife got all upset and thought I was some drunk that went out there. And how could they let this drunk lady ride the horse and stuff? And got real upset over it. But I had a lot of fun doing the comedy. I had a lot of fun.
How many years approximately did you
do the comedy? I did it from 85. Well, not the whole year of 85. I'd say about September of 85 I started the comedy. Or August. And then I did it till, 97, 2001, and then 2000. I think 2002 was the last time I did the comedy. 2002. Yeah.
Well, throughout this time, are you teaching others how to work with horses, how to ride?
I have my grandchildren that I'm teaching. My granddaughter, Zefta, is a natural. She is so good. She's so good on a horse. But she has that cocky attitude, And Kind of reminds me of me, I guess, when I was young. But if she keeps it up, she'll be a good rider. She'll be a better rider than, not as good as my Aunt Zephyr Loyal, but she'll get close. And then I have another granddaughter. Her name is Lily. And her father's in the service. In fact, he left yesterday for the desert. And since they came from California and she's been staying here, we enrolled her in kind of like a gymnastic with Alfredo. Within 2 weeks, she did Rondolph flip-flop, Rondolph somersault. Now she does Rondolph flip-flop, 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 flip-flop. And now she's getting them tight. So, and she's learning the horses. So we're going to get her so where she can do it like Zephyr did on the horse. So, but Lily, she's going to be a good gymnast. Hopefully on the back of a horse.
Is it important to pass on your knowledge?
To me it is. I think every walk in life, I think their grandparents and their parents should pass their knowledge of their family's history and should be proud of their history, whether they were farmers or welders or bookmakers or whatever. Should be very proud of their heritage. In fact, I was working on some of the cheerleaders' outfits. They got them in and they were too big, and so I had to take them apart and fit them. And they were all talking to me because I had some costumes hanging. And, oh, you make those? I said, yes. Oh, I wished I was in the circus. And I told them, I said, you can be in the circus, but you should take pride in your heritage, what your ancestors did, what your family did, and how they came here, and what all they went through. And because a lot of them had to cross this country in covered wagons. And I'm sure if they would just do research and ask their grandparents, and those grandparents could tell them what their grandparents did, you know. And I think that's what our children's generation is liking, is they have nothing to give them any kind of self-pride, and they should have that.
Well, you mentioned that you're a jack of all trades when it comes to the circus.
Master of none.
So outside of the horses and the riding and the elephants, what else were you involved with?
I can cook in the cookhouse. I know how to cook for like 200 people plus. I bill posted. That's where I go out and put out tickets and put posters up for the circus in every town that you go to. I've put arrows up, and the worst town to put arrows up in is Chicago, Illinois, on a Sunday when there's traffic. Let me tell you, I don't know how many times I almost got run over. And the show was somewhere in Indiana, and we had to go through Chicago. And Lucy, we need arrows. You need to go put up the arrows. I don't know if you know what the arrows are. Okay. And so I said, okay. And they said, here's the synonymous. I can't ever say that word. Synonymous sheet. It's a sheet of paper that has all the directions and the contacts and whatever. And I said, okay. And it has directions, what highways, whatever to go. And I'm going, oh my God. I said, it's okay, but we're downtown Chicago and we're on the interstate and the traffic was horrible. And like when you're putting these arrows up, you have to give them enough time so they can switch lanes to turn and stuff. So you start 2 miles back and you put slow down, left turn or whatever, where you have your arrow, and you have one going down and one turning. And then a little bit further, maybe half a block or so, then you put 2 arrows down, 2 arrows turning. So they catch that one. And then you just keep doing that until you get to the turn, and you got to make sure that there's plenty of arrows up So they all know that that's the turn. So you have them on this side of the interstate and you have them on that side of the interstate. And and there you're standing like this and the cars are zooming past you and on the exit thing and you're right there. It was awful, awful. But I did that several times. I did a little booking. I'm not a very good booker. I'm not as good as BK. BK's what you would call a booking agent. I booked a few little towns. We're talking little towns. I've waited tables at Denny's. I don't know. I did all kinds of little things, I guess.
What's your favorite outside of, we know the horses, obviously. If something outside of the horses, what would be your next favorite?
I would say the elephants.
The elephants.
And then trapeze, aerial work. I love making costumes. In fact, I was commenting with my daughter last night as we were driving back from getting Kylie her homecoming dress. Is that what it is? Homecoming? Yeah, homecoming dress. I get prom and that thing mixed up all the time. How I like to make costumes and sew. I said I'd like to have my own little room where I can just spread everything out, and when I get through, I can leave and close the door and know the kids haven't gotten into it. And I like breaking the animals to work. I like breaking the horses. I like breaking dogs. And it sounds terrible when you say breaking, because you really don't break them.
Is there a trick to it?
Yeah, it's called treats. Yep, that's the easiest, the fastest, the kindest. And you don't whip them. If you whip them or spank them, well, you don't spank them, but hit them or whatever, you're not going to get anything out of them. You just frighten them, and they don't want to do it. You know, they're afraid. And so if you have, like when I'm teaching my dogs, I'll go buy a package of hot dogs. In fact, I got to turn my dogs loose. I go buy a package of hot dogs. So I want them to get on the pedestal and stay. I'll say, here, and I got a hot dog, but they're cut in little pieces. And I'll say, sit, stay, and you give them a hot dog. Stay, all right. And then whatever, and then you give them a hot dog, a treat, So then eventually they go, oh, well, if I sit there long enough, I'm going to get a hot dog, or if I jump through that hoop, she's going to give me a hot dog. And then that's how I teach them. And like when they're working, normally I don't take hot dogs in the ring to give it to them, but they know I have it. So I'll show them that they're in the little pouch, and they'll see the little pouch. They'll go in and do whatever their little routine is. And when we come out, then I give them all their hot dogs. So if I go in there and I do it all, when I come out, I get my treats. So, and that's pretty much the same way with the horses, with their treats. But even when they're working, I always manage to sneak one over there to them.
Was there ever an animal you took on that you just thought, oh no, I can't train this animal?
Yes. A friend had a pony drill he wanted me to break. He brought 6 ponies. Well, he brought 8 ponies, 8 or 9, something like that. And he said, pick out 6 of them. And which I did. And 2 of those ponies are the hard-headed. I don't care what you did. They're horrible. And I could never get them to do anything. So I just left them out. I just forget it. And that happens sometimes, You'll pick an animal and they're just not for that. Maybe they'll be better in a different aspect or something, but they were just not any good for that pony drill. Hard-headed.
What are some of the smarter animals you've worked with? Are horses smart?
Horses are smart.
Elephants?
Depends on which horses. Appaloosas are the stupidest horses. And elephants are very smart. Very, very, very smart. And you know what? You can't get an animal to do anything that they don't already do. That's like, like elephants. Oh, well, they are not to sit up and they're not to do this and not to do that. But they do it. Even if you don't have to teach them. If you just stay back and watch them, they do it. They do it on their own. They lay down, they sit up. I mean, it's just a matter of getting them to do it when you want them to do it, is what it is. And that's like the horses, the same thing. Oh, well, horses, they don't get on pedestals and they don't do this and they don't do that. Oh, yes, they do. They want that piece of grass that's over there. They'll step up on top of a rock to get to it. And they do pretty much what they want to do. And you can't teach an animal to do something that they don't already do naturally. Except maybe teach well, I don't know. I guess cats swim too, So.
Any particular dog a better breed to train?
I'm sorry?
Any particular breed of dog better?
To me, just a Heinz 57 is the smartest dog you can get. Just some old mutt is a lot smarter than a pedigree dog. That's my opinion. I'm sure I'm not a dog person to an expert on training dogs and stuff. I do a little training, just simple little things. I don't, hard stuff. But I'm sure they're like Laura Harriet. She would know because that's what her father and her grandfather were experts at breaking dogs, ponies, horses. They were experts at that. So I'm sure she could tell you the smartest, to me would be a Heinz 57. But
What's your favorite breed of horse to train?
a Belgian. I love Belgians. Big draft horses. Belgians are, I don't know, they're just so gentle and just so calm and just so, whatever. Like that, Okay, let's go. Let's do it. Had one horse. His name was Chulo. And he was big, and I'd have to get up, stand on a chair or something to wash his back. And sometimes there'd be places at a fairgrounds where I didn't bring a chair or something. So I'd say, down, down, and he'd put his head down. And I would straddle it, and he would lift me up, and then I'd be on his neck washing his back, and then he'd let me down like that. It's a good horse. I only had two that ever did that. Him and a horse called McKeegan that we had that did that, because McKeegan was real tall.
How long would be their career span working with the circus?
The horses? Depends on when you got the horse. We had horses that, oh my God. Well, let me think. Cincinnati. I think I mentioned him in my interview before. That was a horse that come from the family, my father's family. And I learned on that horse. And that horse had to have been 33, 32 years old before he died. And then we had a little miniature we called McKeegan Kid. And we bought McKeegan Kid, and he was already 10 years old. And McKeegan Kid was, I bet you, 35, 36 when he died. And he just died last summer. Last summer. Last summer. We had him for a long. They're like people, they get old, you take care of them. And they get skinny, and people look at, oh my God, he's starving. It's not that he's starving to death, he's just old. And the more food you give him, the more vitamins you give him, I don't care what you give him. He's not going to get fat. He's just old, And he was just so old, so I had people calling and complaining, and the what do you call him? The animal control guy come down. And I said, it's McKeegan Kid. He said, oh, they're calling about McKeegan Kid because I had called him before and told him, if get any complaints, it's because he's just old. And I showed him his paperwork. I had him on senior, had him on red cell, I had him on weight gainer. The vet here in Hugo, would check on him for me and stuff. And I said, and here's all the paperwork. I said, he's just old. He's old. And I said, like these animals, like, for instance, Chulo or McKeegan Kid, they put bread and butter on our tables for a long, long, long time. And I don't get rid of nobody. I take care of them. They took care of me. Now it's my turn to take care of them, That's how we look at it. And
How would you do food along the way for the animals? Did you have to arrange
oh,
for feed,
like,
or take
okay,
it
usually
online?
every town in the country has a feed store. And you can go in and buy your sweet feed and whatever you want. Then they would call, like, the feed store and find out who has hay locally, and you buy local hay if you need the hay, or find somebody that delivers, and they'll deliver it to the circus grounds, And usually, back in the day, when they had like 30 elephants on Carson and Barnes at one year, the hay that they would have to bring in by the bales, it was like every other day there was hundreds of bales brought in for these baby elephants that they had brought to the country and stuff. In fact, BK just got a whole bunch of pictures in with all those baby elephants. Oh, I remember the day. And she was saying, well, do you remember what year that was? Do you remember what year that was? And I was sitting there and I was trying to remember if it was 76 or 77 that they brought those baby elephants in. I think there was like 22 of them. It was the last herd of baby elephants that came into the country before they put the ban on bringing elephants into the country. Boy, that was a long time ago. And the best feed for me when I'm traveling, I like the Amish country because they have good feed. Their feed stores are really good. You buy them, they still come in that, instead of paper and stuff, they still come in burlap sacks, big burlap sacks. Oh.
Well, through the years, you started in 68, is that right?
What's that, huh?
With your 58.
What's that?
With your comedy act?
Oh, no, I started that in 85. 85, the comedy act, yeah. And that was one of my favorite periods, was the comedy, because it always worked really, really good. It always went real good. One of my favorite places that I ever worked the comedy act was Chicago, Illinois, at Medina Temple. And we were hired there for 17 days. And we were on a stage in that Medina Temple. And the audience is all sitting right there in those folding chairs like at a movie theater and stuff. I mean, they're right there on top of you. And to just watch, they were so close, to just watch the faces on these people and laugh. Just to watch them laugh was so much fun, because I started laughing watching them laugh. People laugh different ways, and it's funny to watch them laugh. But that was one of my favorite places. Remember that, Mona? In Chicago at Medina Temple, with all those people doing the comedy act there?
Yeah, we were on the stage.
On the stage, yeah.
And you could just hear the people, because they were so close, it ran over really, really well. Really well.
And that mechanic would fly
these
out. When
pictures
I'd
that you
fly,
were
I'd
taking,
fly out. It was hilarious.
That was there.
No, that was in Medina Temple. And then Christian's mother, Renata. Other than myself, Renata did the comedy, and my daughter Josie did the comedy. And Renata did the comedy, and she was hilarious. And because she was kind of chunky anyway, right? And we got a date to go to Puerto Rico. I didn't want to go to Puerto Rico because I had some friends the year before had gone to Puerto Rico to work Puerto Rico, and they got stranded over there. It was a big mess, or a couple of years before that. And I said, no, we're not going to Puerto Rico. I said, we are not going to Puerto Rico. I said, we get to Puerto Rico. How the hell are we going to get our horses back if whatever happens? I said, we don't have the money for that. They wanted Puerto Rico. I said, well, you guys go. I'm not going. I'm going to stay here so if something happens, I can get your happy asses back. So anyway, Renata winded up doing the comedy in Puerto Rico. And I flew to Puerto Rico. And of course, when we do it here, we do it in English. And over there in Puerto Rico, they did it in Spanish because it's all Spanish. And laughed. That was the funniest writing act I ever did. She was hilarious. Renata was hilarious because she was kind of chunky anyway. And of course, she changed some of her ad-libs from the way I did it here. And since she was like real chunky and stuff, and the guy, Armando, would put her on the horse and she'd just go right on over the horse and come back round, and she would say, well, I'm kind of, I can't do that. And the guy said, well, who told you to eat so many potatoes and stuff? I mean, but in Spanish, it was hilarious. She was funny. But it went over really, really good. And Zefta worked. And Zefta was what, 3 years old? And she would run in. We'd have a horse standing at the back of the ring, the big horse. And she would run in underneath his belly and go in, and she would do a Britney Spears dance. And that horse they'd take out, and then they'd put the other horse in. And she would come get on her father's shoulders, standing up on one leg, and did really good. It was really, really pretty. They had a real good act. Plus with Renata, it was hilarious. Very good. That was one of the best writing acts I had seen in a long time.
Had she learned from you?
She'd learned from me, yeah. But Renata came from a circus family as well. I'm going to say Renata's probably 5 generations of circus family. Her family comes from Peru. And her grandfather on her mother's side, at one time they all owned a circus in Peru. His father plus his father plus his father, So, and her brothers right now are working at Circus Soleil in Orlando.
So what other foreign countries have you played in then?
Who, me?
You mentioned Canada.
I went to Canada.
Cuba?
I didn't work in Cuba. I went to Cuba.
But you were there.
Yeah, I loved Cuba, but I didn't work in Cuba. I haven't worked anywhere other than Canada and the United States. In Mexico. That's about it. I worked in Mexico. That's almost like the United States, though, When we went to Puerto Rico, I was real little with the family. When they went to South America, I was real little. I didn't work.
Okay. Switching gears a little bit, can you talk a little bit about raising a family while you were
On the
road?
circus? Oh, I loved it. My kids, when they were small, they were always on the show with me. And then when they got school age, my mom stayed home and sent my children to school. And then when summer vacation would come, Mom and the kids would all come to the circus. And then when school would start, they would all go back to Hugo. But if they were still small enough, they would stay with me till school age. And then they would go home. But Mona could probably tell you it was like being a child on the circus, going back and forth, When I was growing up, it was really hard because my mom and dad were both from Europe. and they had nobody to leave me with to go to school. And I hated school anyway, and I think I told you that before. And all I wanted was circus, circus, circus. But you know, as you get older and you look back and you see the memories and things that the other children have, their friendships that they have, like their class reunions, and they see so and so, and oh, there's so and so, and stuff. And then you got the prom, and you've got the homecoming, and these are all memories that they could cherish that I didn't have, and wasn't smart enough to think about it when you're at that age. But I wanted them to have that. I wanted them to have the best of both lives, the circus life and the city life, in which I think I accomplished that, because they go into the store and they'll run into somebody. Hey, oh yeah, you know, and I'm going, see, you know, so. And now my grandkids are doing that. But this is the first one that's ever became a candidate for homecoming or anything. I think, Mona, you played tennis, didn't you?
Josie cheered, Mondo played football.
Yeah, that type of thing. So, but you know, and then they have their circus friends and stuff. So. But on the circus, we would go. We get to the circus grounds. It all just depends. We get up in the morning at 5:00. Carry those kids to the pickup or whatever in their blankets, and they'd be sleeping unless I pulled into a gas station, and then they'd all want chocolate milk and a donut or something. Or, can we go to McDonald's? Let me see how much money I have. We'll go through the drive-thru. And you're sitting there counting the pennies out. And then we'd get to the circus grounds, and I'd start hooking up the lights and unloading the trailer. The kids would probably have cereal, or I'd fix breakfast. It just depended. And then they'd all go out and play. And later, when they got older and stuff, I took them to Disney. We'd have like maybe picnics, or we'd go on Sundays to the movies. And then when they got old enough, we had what we called a Wawa, a bus. And this bus on Sundays would make several trips back and forth to the circus and to town. And they would have a list of everything that was in town. McDonald's, Arby's, China King, or whatever. And then they would have a list of the movies, the bowling alley. And then he would take them, and for $1, you would ride the Wawa, and he would drop you off at whatever location you wanted. And then at such and such time, he would be back by to pick you up at that location. Well, when the kids got old enough, you would see this big group. There'd be Mona and Josie, Armando, Tracy, Kristen, Libby. You'd see all these kids, plus the other performers' kids. They would go in groups. And you never worried about them, you know, because they were always in groups. And that sometimes they would go. One time they went to Janis Jackson's concert. And I think the circus kids are a lot smarter, almost like streetwise type thing, because we always are talking to them about strangers, watching out, you know, be careful, you never know, and this and that. But we're always, I said, you know, like being on the circuit's an easy picking grounds for somebody to just walk up, you know, and they can pretend they're looking at the animals, and something could happen, you know. And at a early age, they knew what drugs were, to stay away from drugs, people that do drugs. I don't know.
Everybody always kind of watched out for all the kids. You know what I mean? Like all the working guys or the performers or whoever was working on the show
Always watched
for all the kids.
All the kids,
So it was
yeah.
like, you know, big nursery. You could be anywhere. Your parents might not know where you were, but someone else knew where you were, you know.
All I had to do was go out and say, "Hey, did you see Mona?" Oh yeah, her and Christy and Tracy and Maria and Vanderhyde, and they're all over near the pie car, or they're over there in the back end of the canvas truck or something, you know.
So it'd be pretty easy to know when they got in trouble.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You knew when they got in trouble.
Everybody knew.
Yeah, and you know, and it wasn't just the parent that would discipline them, and it was always known through all the circus people. If you catch my kid doing something they're not supposed to do, you do to them what you would do to your own kid, and that's how it was. That's if I caught one of the show kids doing something, oh yes, ma'am, snatch him up real quick, and but that's how we all were. But things have changed now from the way they were and to the way they are now.
So it's different now.
It's a lot different. I think it's because the performers that they have here now aren't from here. They bring them from Peru, or they bring them from Argentina, and they have not grown with us. Because back then, everybody that lived here, all our kids, all our family, all the different families like Moore, and we all went on the same circus. So not only did we live together on the circus, we lived together here, and we always watched out for each other's family, each other's kids.
And we were in the circus with the same kids, and we came home and went to school
with the same kids. So
a group of us, not a lot of maybe.
You know,
5 to 10
and now it's not like that. They just whatever, you know, and there's not that familyness. We used to have, like, on the show, we would get together on Sunday. Everybody would chip in $5, and we'd have big.
We still do that though. We still do that on our show.
Yeah, well, they don't over there anymore.
Wow.
But
We still
but you kids would do it on your own. You guys would all chip in to Armando, and just all you kids would have your own
like
little party or their group party and stuff, you know. But not off anywhere, so where we can see them, you know. And then we would have like Halloween parties on the show, and the kids would do skits like that, like the time you guys did the Ninja Turtle thing, the Ninja Turtles. They all for Halloween, and then on the 4th of July, the kids would do things, and they would have baseball games, and we'd all sit and cheer and stuff, and we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun back. Soccer games. So it was just like one big giant family unit that did everything together, almost like the Kennedys when they played football. And I was talking with BK the other day. We were going through these pictures that she had gotten. And I go, oh, I hadn't seen a picture of Aunt Torchy. She isn't my blood aunt, but to me she's my Aunt Torchy. And that's like all of us in show business that we had, like my Aunt Jerry, my Aunt Flo, my Aunt Isla. They're not blood aunts, but there are aunts, because the way Mona and I explained just now how the kids were growing up, that's how I grew up. That was my Aunt Jerry. She kept an eye on me. That was my Aunt Flo. She kept an eye on me. They always knew where we were. And so I go, oh, look, there's Aunt Torchy. And BK goes, yeah. I said, oh, this lady. Something else. Tiny, teeny little thing. And I was going to go to Oklahoma City one year with her to work the Shrine Circus at the auditorium that was downtown. And at one time, there was a hotel called Hotel Black. I don't know if it's still there or not. And so we were leaving Hugo. We left during the night sometime. And I don't know how far we got. I'm going to say we probably got up maybe around Ada, maybe Purcell, somewhere over there. And the transmission went out of her car. And so some truck driver picked us up with some semi somewhere. And I remember loading all this crap, handing it up to her so we could go. And she said, well, hand me my purse. And I tried to pick up this purse. I couldn't pick up this purse. And I said, Aunt Torchy, what you got in this purse? I was probably about 12 years old. And so I opened that purse. You name it, she had it in there. She had tools. She had sewing stuff. She had makeup. She had silverware. You name it, she had it in there. That purse weighed a ton. And I was telling BK, I said, my God. She said, yeah. She said, you know, and that's how she tried. She said, I bet you didn't know there was a gun in the bottom of that purse. And I said, no. I said, how in the hell could you find it with all that crap on top of it? You know. But anyway, so we get to this Hotel Black. And she told me, says, that's where all the circus people stayed. Well, they must have stayed back there in that hotel back in vaudeville time because there wasn't any when I got there. And we did that shrine circus there in Oklahoma City. We were there a week. And then finally a friend came and picked us up and brought us home because her car was in the shop. But I remember doing Webb and doing all the production numbers there. And the Zoppi family was there. They did their riding act. And I was just a kid. Yeah, I remember her putting my makeup on because I didn't know how to put makeup on. And but that was my first shrine date I ever did. It was in Oklahoma City. For Tom Pax. Jack Luantini was the producer. I'll never forget those names. And then I'm trying to think what other shows I went and I did what we used to call the Texas dates. And I think I was about 13, 14 when I did the Texas dates. It was Houston. Did Houston, did Dallas-Fort Worth, Corpus Christi, San Antonio, and I think it was Galveston. I think those were the five cities, or it might have been Austin. The 5 cities. I know it was 5 cities we did. And my favorite one though was Houston. I really liked Houston in that Astrodome back in the day. Yeah. You can look out and you can see the prison from our dressing room. Isn't that the city jail, rather, I should say. It's terrible. Yeah, I was about 13. And then what other dates did I do when I was a young girl? I think I worked Minneapolis, St. Paul. I'm not real sure. I know I did San Antonio another time for the police department, for the police.
You have a great memory about the places you've been.
Oh.
You know, I would think you're on the road so much that each place it'd be easy to forget.
You know, I spent a lot of time on the side of the road, broke down. I'm serious. I am so serious. And my daughter can verify
We all
that.
make fun of her because
I could get in your car with you and we
Brandon
could go and we'll break down.
No,
Believe
she'll
me.
break down.
We'll break down somewhere. And in fact, Maura got this brand new white truck. And she said, we're going in my truck. I said, okay. And we get going. I don't know how far we get. And we break down. And she looks at me and she says, I can't believe this. I'm broke down. And you're with me. It's the truth. So everywhere I go, I can tell you where I broke down. I remember the spots. You come through McAllister, right?
Mhm.
Okay. You know that toll coming to Hugo when you come through McAllister? I broke down right there. I had to sit over on the side of the road for 2 days. Okay. Up there by Miami, Oklahoma, there's 2 different spots that I broke down at 2 different times there. I can tell you, I broke down all over the place.
We broke down in California, no, in Arizona, California. We were stuck at that truck stop for like a week in the 120-degree heat.
It was Hope, Arizona. I can tell you exactly where it was.
Horses.
What do you do? I mean, this is in the days prior to cell phones. What do you do when you break down?
You hitchhike to town or have somebody go into town and have a mechanic, tell them you need a mechanic or something or like that.
Would the circus realize?
Well, when we were on, okay, now, for instance, like Carson and Barnes or Kelly Miller, either one, they have a mechanic shop. It's a big semi, and it's like a garage, a traveling garage on wheels. We have our own wrecker. We have our own tire truck. Well, they. And this big semi is like a garage. You walk into the semi, there's everything imaginable that a garage would have, that they have in there. They carry extra motors. They carry extra axles. They carry extra whatever. And they're the last ones to leave the circus grounds. Everybody leaves before the mechanics leave. And then the mechanics will sit there maybe an hour and a half. They'll have their breakfast, do whatever they want, and then they leave because they want to make sure, that they get going. So the first person they come to that's broke down, they pull over. If they can fix it right there, they fix it. If they can't, they have the wrecker, they hook it up, and they tow it in. And believe me, they've towed me a many times. Many a time. Yeah. In fact, I helped pay for Bill Parker's house as many times as I broke down. Yeah. But they never, like Carson Barnes, Kelly Miller, Culpepper, they always take care of their people, the mechanics. Now, okay, the private vehicles, like ours was a private vehicle, they would charge us just like going to a garage and doing it. But everything that belongs to the show, that's their expense. That's show equipment. They work for the show. That's why they're there, to take care of the show equipment. But should an individual break down with his own private vehicle, they'll fix it, but it's like going to the garage, So unless it's something major like a motor or a transmission, well, then they tow you to a garage, and a garage, they'll charge you for the towing. And then we have, like I said, the cookhouse, where I could cook for, and they served coffee and donuts in the morning before they leave at 5 o'clock, or sweet rolls, just depends. And then when you get to the circus grounds, we have a thing called a pie car. And it's like a snack shop. You can go in there and order an egg sandwich or big breakfast or whatever, and they make it. And then at 11 or 11:30 cookhouse. I don't remember. They'll have cookhouse, and they'll have, it depends, maybe they'll have scrambled eggs and sausage or hot cakes or whatever, or maybe grilled cheese sandwiches and soup. Just depends, And
You have to tell me about BK's Cookhouse, because she
that's
made a
the
point.
best cookhouse that ever has been. And let me tell you, right now, Kelly Miller is the only other cookhouse that you can kind of go, okay, you can compare it to BK's Cookhouse. Kelly Miller right now has a great cookhouse, but they're fixing to lose that cook they got. And I don't know what they're going to do, but BK's Cookhouse. You get up in the morning, beep, beep, whatever, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and you have coffee and donuts. We go to the next town, and within 30 minutes you're there, it's breakfast. She has milk on the table, cereal on the table, mustard, ketchup, mayonnaise, salt, pepper, jelly, butter. Not one kind of jelly. They have strawberry or blackberry jam, whatever. Sometimes they have that apple butter too on there. Okay. Then over here they have a thing with the coffee, a thing of orange juice sitting there. Milk's on the table. Then you go up to the window. Normally, all the cookhouses will make just scrambled eggs and bacon or whatever. You go to BK's cookhouse and the cook says, "How do you want your eggs? Fried or scrambled?" And I about fell over. I like mine over medium, please. And like that, and then the next day they would say for breakfast, pancakes or waffles, bacon or sausage. Maybe the next day it's biscuits and gravy or something else, and plus you have cereal on the table. Yeah, that was breakfast at BK's cookhouse. Then at noon, and you just got through eating, and here it's noon, and then they have sandwiches. You have ham and cheese, or you want bologna and cheese, or do you want salami and cheese? You want tomato soup or chicken soup? Well, it was usually chicken noodle soup or beef barley soup, and then some days they would have like grilled cheese and tomato soup, or grilled cheese and some onion soup or something. And then supper time, fried chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans or corn. And then your dessert, whatever the dessert was. And then the next day it might be roast beef. And it was, and then she'd go over, "Billy, you're not cooking supper tonight." "What do you mean I'm not cooking?" "No, we're taking everybody out to the restaurant for supper. I made arrangements over here at this little restaurant to cater us our supper so you could have a day off."
That's nice.
Yes, it was. There's not too many circuses. I don't know of any circuses that do that. And she was very good. I'd work for BK in a New York second, anytime. I always used to tease her, "When are you guys taking out another circus? When are you taking out another circus?" Yeah, she was a good boss to work for. First time I ever saw BK. We got fired from her mother-in-law's circus, right? And they didn't know that BK had hired us. Well, I wasn't in charge of the business. My dad was. My dad and my mother. And here I'm already I had just had Mona. Mona was just a little baby. A few weeks old, maybe 3 weeks old, something like that, a month at the most. And so her mother-in-law fired us. So I just assumed we were going to come home. But BK had hired us on their circus, on Fisher Brothers. And so I think it took us like 2 days to get there, and we come pulling on the circus grounds, and Papa stops, and we pull up beside him in the car. And Papa goes, "Well, I need to go see where they want me to park. I need to find Well, here comes this lady running out. She had on a pair of capris and the shirt. Her hair was all up in curlers. And we're standing there, and she comes running up, starts hugging us and kissing us, and I'm just kind of standing there. And Billy Griffin comes up, "Hey!" I said, "Who the hell is that?" And he goes, "That's the owner of the show." I said, "Oh." I said, "Well, hell, she don't even know us, and she's hugging and kissing us." And, but I'll tell you what, I'd give back to anything to go back to those days on that circus. It was a nice, small family circus. The happiest I ever was on a circus. Nobody bothered anybody. And then on Sundays, he would set up the sideshow, and he would put this big movie screen up. And he would, her husband Melvin, we would have movies on Sundays. We would, most of the time they were westerns with Audie Murphy and John Wayne, but let me tell you, we had movies, and they'd get the popcorn popper going in the concessions, and they'd bring boxes of popcorn in there. We'd have popcorn and sodas and watch movies. And then he would get him, that Blondie and Dagwood and Blondie are related, I think. I'm not real sure how it works. And that we would get Blondie and Dagwood movies all the time. And he would send them or something. And we would watch movies. That was every Sunday. We didn't work on Sundays. And every Sunday we'd be in the sideshow watching movies. He'd turn on the generator just so we could watch movies. But good circus.
Well, fast forwarding just a little bit,
Sure.
in the 80s you were doing the comedy act.
Right.
At what point did you know my career is starting to come to an end in terms of writing in the show?
When I had this surgery, what year was that?
We're on Circus Vargas. I was 13.
No, with this surgery. When I just
Oh, that one, 13, but your knee.
no. When my career was over doing
When we start having kids and we made her stay home. Because she still thinks in her mind she's going to go back.
Are you ready to go out on the road tomorrow?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I already kind of got it planned a little
Yeah,
bit.
uh-huh.
See, Josie's supposedly not going to go back on the circus next year. She's supposedly going to get a city town job. She bought that house. She's going to stay home. Well, Tina's going to be home. And Josie will be home. Then I don't need to be home. So I can go on the road. Look at Mona, look at
Well, my daughter will be graduated, so that'll be on the rest.
And then by the time Nikki's ready, I'll be way too old for that.
And
So-
so what would you do on the road?
Oh, I could work in the cookhouse. I could hold the whip. I could sell tickets. I could work in the show. Look at my daughter. I'm only kidding. No,
We could do a comedy act with
Yeah, I
that
could.
horse.
I could do a comedy act.
What's the draw still for you now?
It's just in my blood, I guess, because I've done it all my life, you know. I don't know. I
It's
miss
just,
it.
I
I
think
miss,
a lifestyle you get so used to. It's something that you can't even
Yeah.
explain it. Like, I'll be home for 3 months and I'm like, okay, it's time to go, it's time to go, it's time to go. You
yeah,
know,
it's
and
just,
you have a regular life, but you always want to do that no matter what. Me and my brother both went to college. We both ended up back on the circus. My best friend and her sister too. Both have degrees in business and minors in Spanish, but back on the circus.
Hi, Lexi. Did you go to school? She's going to be a circus performer, right, honey? She's going to tell me no. Are you going to do your gymnastics? In a few minutes, will you show them your gymnastics? Granny teaches you in the house sometimes? Your back bend? Anyway,
Thank you.
no, but I know they're not going to let me, so. And this is the youngest one right now that's here, besides Mona's little boy, but he'll be leaving. But she stays. She's gonna be in the circus, right?
Just a smile down pat.
Yeah.
Style.
Okay.
Okay, that's enough now. I guess, you know, and that kind of though, what kind of keeps me going too is because they are this one and Lily and Zephtha and Christian right now too. Oh, Christian's driving me nuts. He wants me to go buy a horse. I said, well, we already got so many over at the house right now. Use one of the. I want my own horse. And he's getting online and he's looking at horses that are up in Nova Scotia and California in Connecticut. I said, there's no way. Well, they're only $500. Yeah, I said, and $2,000 for gas there and back. I said, I don't think so. Oh, but
The circus could pick it up as they go through town.
well, that's what I told Christian. I found some in Illinois, and I said, hey, your dad's in Illinois now. Tell your dad to pick him up for you. So, well, I want my own horse. I want to do my own thing, my own riding act. Yeah, he's into carrying on the family tradition. So,
What do you miss most about being on the road?
not getting up at 5 o'clock, that's for sure. What do I miss most about being on the road? I guess moving, because I like to, as I'm driving in the mornings, I'm always looking like at historical markers and stuff like that. I know this sounds really stupid, but when you're traveling and you get to the town and the area, the lot smells different than the one you just came from. Everything's different, smells different. Everything, there's never ever any day the same. Every day's different. And I guess that's what I like. There's nothing ever the same. You might think the routine is the same. Oh, we get there, we unplug our lights, or plug in our lights and stretch this or stretch that. But you're parked in a different place. It's not the same place. And the scenery's different. And so you stretched your cable like you did yesterday, but something's going to be different that day. It always is. Mm-hmm.
Is the audience much different from spot to spot?
Yes, they are. A lot of towns where they liked maybe this act more than they liked that act. They did in the comedy. It was always a hit. Barbara Bird always told me, she says, I can always tell when the writing act is in the tent. She says, I can hear the laughter and the roars over in their trailer. And it's the truth. I didn't do anything. I didn't do any somersaults. I didn't do flip-flops through hoops. I didn't do anything. All I did was make them laugh. And there's that old saying, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. And it's the truth in show business. If you have somebody that does trapeze and throws a triple, and just throws a triple, and then you have this guy over here that comes in and throws a single somersault. But if he knows how to throw that somersault and knows how to present that somersault, that's more impressive than that triple that he just did. If he doesn't have any style or any grace to it, or and I try to make my grandkids understand that it's not what you do, it's how you do it. That's like right now with Lexi. Okay. You have a lot of gymnasts that are even in the circus that do fantastic tricks, but if they don't have a form to it to make it look like, it looks sloppy. And so I always tell them, make sure the legs are pointed and straight. That's why I always say punte, because you always want to have that, them punte that make it. And it's like walking into the ring. If you don't know how to walk into the ring, it doesn't matter. But if you do know how, just walking in the ring, you can take the house down just walking into the ring. I know it doesn't sound.
That's that part of the show.
It's yeah, and you can feel it. You can feel, and that's like with Zefta. When I talked to Zefta about practicing the horses. Now, my son puts a pad on his horses. My father would kill him if my father was here. There'd be no pad on no horse. My grandfather would string him. So anyway, every now and then my grandfather used a pad, but it was called a panneau. It wasn't actually a pad. It was almost like, you remember like in the movies where they put those backpack things on mules and stuff that sit like that? Okay. And they sit on the horse or the mule. But then it had like a platform on it. And my Aunt Zefta would get on, and she'd have toe shoes on, and she would actually, like a ballerina, on her toe shoes while the horse was running, and she would do things but we call that a panneau. And so I learned on the panneau, and it's real hard because when the horse runs it goes from side to side almost, and it's really hard to stand on. And my son Armando, he made pads, just pads on the horses, and it's cheats. It's like cheating, and you're not cheating anybody but yourself by using those, rather than on the back of a horse. That keeps you from, a pad keeps you from falling. It's I don't know how, and they make it, and it has like ridges on it, and it, you know.
It's more for the balance of the performer rather than the comfort of the horse.
More or less.
Okay.
To me, that would be the way I would put it. But I never used one. Don't ever intend to use one. Don't want my grandkids to use one. And my son and I go round and round over this all the time. Well, all my grandkids are against it because I'm teaching them without that pad. And you can see the difference in the riding from a pad and without a pad. Zefta, in fact, I said, all it is, Zefta, is practice. So they had Dusty here. He wears a pad. So she's sitting on I said, sit on the side, sit on the side, sit on. Now go up. She can't. Well, I can't. And I said, why? Well, I can't. This pad's not letting me get up. It's not going to. What they have to do is they have to use their hands, and they have to push themselves up, and you lose all the graceness and you lose the trick, rather than just sitting there and you're on the horse, and then you feel it, and you just get up on the horse. And so I have Zefta on this other horse without the pad and stuff, and she can get right up. And it's like you have that pad and you can't feel the horse. You can't feel what the horse is going to do. And I wore shoes, but I didn't like to wear shoes. I like to ride bareback. And it's like you and the horse become one, and you can feel before, like when I don't know how to explain it, like, oh, I'm thinking about changing my gallop, and then Chulo, up, Chulo. Oh, she knows what I'm going to do, So it's like you can feel what they're going to do before they do it, and it's the rhythm and stuff. So, and I explained to Zefta that, and so Zefta practices without the shoes. She says, you're right, Granny, you can feel it, you can tell, I said, can you imagine? You got shoes on, then you got that pad on top of them. What the heck are you going to feel? They're going to come to a dead stop, and you're going to keep flying, so. And so, well, we want to tell our dads we don't want them pads on there. I said, well, good luck. And so that's why Christian says, I want to buy my own horse, So that Armando listens to everybody else rather than the way he was taught by my father. But that's his choice. They're his horses. He can do whatever he wants. But the grandkids don't like it. We had Lily the other day practicing, standing up, and I still can't figure out what she was doing wrong. I think she was going up with the wrong leg. She was going up with the outside leg rather than the inside leg first. And then when she'd get up, she'd go exactly straight, which you're not supposed to. You're supposed to keep your chest on the inside, so that keeps you from flying out and stuff.
If you fall off the horse during a performance, what do you do?
You want to fall inside. You don't want to fall out of the ring. You want to fall in the ring. That's why when you're standing on the horse, you always have your your right shoulder kind of like even with its ear a certain way. So your jumping rope, whatever, you're always, if you fall, you always fall inside. Rather than fall to the outside of the ring, you fall to the outside of the ring. You've got the ring curb. You have miscellaneous things like stakes, props that other people use in their acts, a teeter board maybe a pony pedestal or something, that you can fall and hurt yourself on. But you can always save yourself if you fall on the inside. And of course you have the other people in the ring that can run over to catch you. This horse that I had called Chulo, this great big Belgian that I have, he was the best horse I ever had and the smartest horse I ever had. And he, Philadelphia, and we worked at the old train depot. They had torn it down and it still had cobblestones all where we sat up and everything. And they brought in loads of dirt to put in the ring. Well, we have what we call a waterman that has the water truck, and he would he made a mud hole out of it. And with his metal shoes and this mud hole, it went through the dirt and got into the cobblestone, and of course it made him fall. And I was standing up, and rather him falling on me, he fell like outside of the ring. He dropped to the outside of the ring so I would fall inside the ring. He was a smart horse. And I tore the wall of my stomach loose. That's the only time I ever got hurt. That I could say I got hurt. Yeah, but that was practicing. That wasn't in the show. That was Chava's fault, my knee. She got that rope caught around my knee, and Chulo, Pascanel was running. Chava got that rope caught around my knee. Instead of letting go of the rope, she pulled it, and he was running that way, and she pulled it this way, and it tore the cartilages loose in my knee. And but I lucked out because I had his name was John Little, and he was a surgeon for the Rams, the Los Angeles Rams in California, and he's the one that did the surgery on my leg, on my microscopic surgery. And I was in the process of breaking. My dad had already broke them, pretty much, and it was just finishing them off. Because my dad went on Carson Barnes. He had left and gone on Carson Barnes. And I had gone to Circus Vargas out in California with the horses, with the Horse Act. And they weren't quite broke yet. I was going to work on their horse till my horses were ready, which was the following year. And that's when, I came back to Carson Barnes, and that's when Maura and we put the riding act together and stuff.
Constantly thinking.
Yeah, always thinking.
So the last circus you went to was in Kelly's Island?
I went to see my son to visit at Kelly's Island, and kind of wind up working there, doing elephant rides and stuff. I didn't perform in the show or anything, but they were so busy they needed help out on the elephant ride, so I got a bull hook or a stick or whatever you want to call it, and just walked the elephant back and forth, giving them rides. That was hot too. It was hot. They were busy. Had a very nice show. You guys will have to catch Kelly Miller. Good.
Well, as a fan of the circus now, that you're sitting in the stands, what do you look forward to the most when you watch a show?
I'm real bad. You don't want me to go watch the show because I sit there and criticize. I guess that's what you get to do when you get to be my age. You get to go in there and criticize all these young performers. Oh, that looks bad. No. You know what? I really don't watch the show. There's nothing in there that really intrigues me, unless I know it's going to be a real good performer. And what I would have to say this for Adrian Poema, his children with their foot juggling is awesome. Awesome performer. Their foot juggling. And I did, I saw him last year work and everything. And they're very good. And, you know, then other than that, I had already seen everything to see. And then rather than go in there and sit there and criticize, I go criticize my son while he's working the elephants. Oh, you need to comb your hair different. You look awful. Or wear a different kind of shirt or something. I said, you look terrible. Want me to teach you how to work elephants? And, don't you have anything nice to say, Mom? So, but I guess I earned that privilege to criticize. But then there's a lot of acts that are just really, really amazing. Very good acts. But one of the nicest acts that was so impressive to me was I don't know if they were Russian or Bulgarians. Was they did a cradle act, and it was the heck was her name? George, the Marinovs. Their name was Marinovs, and they did a cradle act that was just, I mean, left you with your mouth wide open and just the elegance and the tricks that they did. I mean, it was just unbelievable. They were so good. And you know, and Circus Soleil has a lot of interesting and wonderful acts and stuff. And I like watching their acts, but I don't like watching them when they dress them like with noses and make them. I want to see their abilities. I know they want a theme behind what they're doing, and I understand that. But I don't know. Like, for instance, I've been watching, I don't know if you girls watch that, Dance Moms or something like that on TV. And I watch these little girls doing dance and their athletic abilities in it. And I mean, it's just wonderful. But then they want to put themes that doesn't make any sense. To me, it doesn't make any sense. Rather than showing their abilities, how beautiful they can dance and stuff, you know. Oh, well, I guess each their own.
Well, where do you see the future of the circus? Do you think we'll still have it 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now?
I think there'll always be a little circus around, maybe not big in any aspect, but I feel that there'll always be a little circus. I don't know if there'll always be tigers and lions or elephants on the circuses due to the animal activists, due to whatever. And I can see their point. I understand their point. I understand where they're coming from. They don't want animals to be abused. They don't want... And I understand that. And I agree with them on that. But just because there's one bad apple doesn't make everybody like that. For instance, like I told you about our horses and stuff. I have dogs that I had in my dog act outside in the backyard. They're old. They're ready to die. But I'm not going to go put them down till they got to be put down. You know? I mean, they served me well for several years. Put food on the table, helped me pay my bills. And so why am I going to mistreat them because they don't perform anymore? I don't, you know. And that's, to me, they're like part of my family. My daughter went, well, how many dogs do you still got? You know. I said, 4, I think. I said, let's see, Lucky, got one, yeah, I got 4. I said, and they're staying there till they die. When they're ready, then okay. I said, but until then, don't worry about it. You don't have to buy their dog food. So anyway, and well, how many horses you got? And she said, you got a blind one over there. And I said, yeah. And she's not hurting anybody. She eats, she gets around just like, I put her in her pen. She knows her pen, she has her food, she has her hay, she has her water. Is she hurting you? No. Well, then what do you care? I said, when she's ready to be put down, I'll put her down, And that's just the way I feel about it. But like the animal aspect of it, like the lions, the tigers, and the elephants and stuff, it's a shame because some of these kids in the smaller towns that don't get to go to zoos, that don't get to see this, will be deprived of that, of not being able, to see them. I'm going to tell you something. I remember as a kid on the circus, we'd pull into a town. We'd work a fairgrounds. And in this fairgrounds, they would have the grandstands. And around the track, they would have a big wooden fence all around this track. And on this track, they would have car races, or they would have horse races, or they would have those junky cars that run into each other races, or whatever the hell they do. And I can still smell the smell, even though it's been a month since that happened or whatever. And the tickets that you could find on the ground for the races, and they would sell, I don't know, the souvenir stands where you'd put your finger in that little thing and like that and try to pull it, and it was made out of some kind of grass or something. I remember all that stuff and appreciate all that stuff. None of these kids know what that stuff is. They have no clue. Nothing to let them remember, to think, well, their memories are going to be about, I went and smoked dope at Johnny's house last week, or I got knocked up at Mary's place or something, They don't have anything, and those are things that I think, like with the circus and the animals and stuff, that are memories that make character, that build people and stuff. Or maybe I'm wrong.
Well, looking back on your long career in the circus, how do you want to be remembered? When people say, Lucy.
She made me laugh. That's
Or your horses are loose.
Huh?
Or your horses are loose.
Or your horses are loose. Mona could tell you that. Nino! Your horses are loose.
Yesterday or the day before, your horses are loose down there.
They did. They sure did.
I'm surprised they have not been getting fined yet from the
Yeah.
police department.
We tied your horse up to the fence. They did. They tied the
We
brown
used
one.
to be at school. Oh, Armando, your horse is out in the football field. I'm like, oh my gosh. That's so
Yeah.
embarrassing.
And they still do it, Christian. Well, Christian was in Florida for his summer vacation. They called him, Christian, your grandmother's horses are loose. Christian called me, Ranny, one of the horses are loose. He's over behind the football stadium. I have to go get him. Seek him. But,
So you made us laugh.
oh.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to add that we haven't?
May
talked about?
all your days be circus days. No, I don't know. Anything you want to know more?
Well, we've covered quite a bit, especially with your family and your family history and your career.
And I don't know if I ever mentioned I had a brother who was in the circus. And his name is Luciana Loyal. And he did bareback riding. I only have that one picture. I think I showed you the one picture. Did I not?
I think so. Mm-hmm.
The one picture of my brother. And he also was a boss canvasman, and he was a butcher, and he and I did the writing act 1 year together. Just 1 year, he and I did a writing act together, and it was 1969. I can even tell you the year it happened, and I would have liked to have had more pictures of that year with him and I doing the writing act. And he used to be in the writing act when we were kids. And I used to push him around and beat him up. And he'd say, "Some of these days, Lucy, I'm going to get you back when I grow up." But, and he was killed on BK Circus. But, no, that's pretty much the circus life of every day, the same thing over and over, whether it's rain, shine, hot, cold. It's fun. It was a lot of fun.
Wouldn't trade it in.
No, I wouldn't trade none of it in. That's just like what I was telling you about the tickets and the fairgrounds and the stuff like that. That being a kid on the circus. 1 year, I remember this, we were out in California. I had to have been about 8 years old. I'm going to say it was either 58 or 59, something like that. And they had the irrigation ditches they would have. And we were at this, I want to say fairgrounds, but I really can't. And I remember it being fenced in. And I remember this little irrigation ditch coming around. And it went behind the trailers and down like this. But then there were some trees real close to it. And the water was just rushing through this little irrigation ditch. And it was so hot. And all the circus people, all of us, were in this little irrigation ditch playing in that water that was, I mean, we had a ball in that irrigation ditch. Hell, it might have been the sewer for all I know, really, if you stop and think about it. But it was an irrigation ditch. When we were kids on the circus, I remember we used to go exploring. We'd go exploring, and then one time there was a garbage dump. We were in the garbage dump. I was playing in the garbage dump, getting garbage out of the garbage dump people threw away, and was playing, making a house and stuff with stuff out of the garbage dump, all of us circus kids. Well, I bet you we smelled good when we came home. I still remember that.
Good memories.
Yeah. You know, see, you don't want to trade that for nothing. And now they're worried about germs everywhere. And I played in a garbage dump.
Well, would you do anything differently?
No, I wouldn't trade. I wouldn't trade anything. Maybe I'd pick a different husband if I could have the same
I was
kids.
looking at her like, wouldn't change anything. Are you sure?
No, just think though, Mona, you wouldn't be here.
I'd say me, the other ones.
Oh. No, I don't think I would trade. I might do some little things different. I think I might have studied harder in that aspect of things, but as far as the other, no, I have a lot of good family, kid memories, traveling on the circus. Another time, we were in Canada, 1963. We were in Canada, and my dad had this truck, this bubble nose truck, and he was pulling a trailer that we had. It was a Midway. And I remember him going, well, I don't remember him going around the curb, but you weren't supposed to ride in the trailers. You were always supposed to ride, even now, you're not supposed to ride in a trailer. You're supposed to ride in the truck or the car or whatever. And my brother and I stayed in the trailer because we didn't want to get up. And my dad had jackknifed this trailer. And it was on a dirt road somewhere in Canada. And he was making it was like a curve. And that trailer had jackknifed, but the trailer had jackknifed out like this. And this back half was hanging off this kind of like a cliff, an embankment thing. And there was a creek, but it wasn't really a creek, it was a river. and I couldn't get the front door open to get out. Brains goes to the back door. I opened the back door to go out, and I fell, and I mean this far away from falling into that river. So I was really lucky, really, really lucky. But I remember that, and them fishing me out, throwing some rope to get me out, and I'm yelling at my brother not to, that we'd get it, so we broke the front window and got him out of the front window. But just things like that, you know, that I remember. By now I wouldn't trade it because I learned something. Look before you jump.
Those little life lessons.
Yeah, you know. Just, and I sit back, and I had met a lot of local kids, and I would go to their houses and I would play, and I have pictures with them. I don't even know them anymore. I don't even know their names. Don't remember their names, but I remember that day, and I remember the house, and I remember it was a 2-story house. And then I remember a girl, and this was in 64, and her name was Mary. And I remember the name of the town. It was Seymour, New York. And I wrote her for a long time. Well, I don't know what happened to her. And I had a picture of her. She was so pretty. Who knows what happened to her? Well, it's terrible. I wonder about people that I had met as a kid, and even after, as I was older, wonder what happened to this lady, or wonder what, It's so funny how so many lives intertwine with other people's lives. You're touched in so many, like ours, how we met just, with this, how wonderful. It's wonderful. Do what? With my horses? And you have horses?
Oh no.
You don't like horses?
Oh, I have nothing against horses.
Okay.
Oh.
You better like
I know,
horses.
I love horses.
You
I'm
better
about to
like-
get kicked out of this house.
No.
Oh, horses are great. No, I have nothing against horses.
No. But, yeah, the circus is really, it's a learning trip, actually, through life. The circus is. Being on the circus, not having water, I'd take a bath in a gallon of water and wash my hair and everything in a gallon of water. And then not having lights, and like if something should ever happen, I know how to survive without. I wonder how many people in Hugo would know how.
I know
Mona
where they need to go.
Mona would survive. Tina would. I know my kids would survive because they know how. But I wonder how many other. I think Maura would know how to survive. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I keep hitting that. And Maura would know how, and I think BK would know how. We've just have gotten lazy, accustomed to air conditioning and light switches and stuff like that. But I know I could survive.
I know where I'm going. Mm-hmm.
Well, come to my... they were talking about there's going to be a food shortage and all this stuff's going to happen. I'm already thinking of what I'm going to put back. I'm going to put back...
We take it back in buckets. We've done all
Yeah.
kinds of crazy stuff.
This one year, Mona was with me. It was when we were on Vargas. We're coming home, right? It was hot. It was miserable. And I had hurt my knee. That's when I had that surgery on my knee, and I had that brace on my leg. And they wanted to stop and go to a swimming pool, and we couldn't because
It was so hot. That's when we broke down in wherever.
it was called Hope City.
Yeah.
A truck stop. Hope City, Arizona, between Blythe and Phoenix. So they wanted to go swimming. It's so hot. It's so hot. So I stopped at a Kmart and I bought a big plastic trash barrel. Do you remember me?
Filled up with water, and me and my cousins rode in the back in the camper in water with the
In
trash
that-
barrel. 'Cause it was so hot.
And to keep from the water getting all over, I bought black trash bags. And I put up black trash bags so they wouldn't get the couches wet. And that black trash bag would run like almost like a shower curtain type to go out the door, underneath the door, so if the water, it would run out of the ground. And that's how they played. It took me like 5 days to get back to work. We broke down. It took us almost like 10 days to get home.
Wow.
Yeah. But that's how they put those trash barrels in there, and they played in those trash barrels. So they'd have
Or even on the circus, if it was hot, we would go jump in the elephant troughs or the horse troughs. All the kids playing the elephant troughs.
and the elephant trough and the
That
horse
was a swimming pool.
troughs and stuff.
It
Yeah.
was a swimming pool parks.
Mm.
It was a water park.
Well, I think this is a good place for us to end.
Okay.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
sharing your life with us and giving us a glimpse into
Thank
the
you.
circus.
Thank you for coming.
Really appreciate it.
And we can never do anything for you, holler.